Presenting today is Dan Gardner. He's the CEO of ViewPlus, and we're going to be hearing quite a bit in the next little bit about the products ViewPlus makes, what their mission is, what they're striving to accomplish, and even some new things that are on the horizon before we finish up today. Now, are any of these things challenges that you deal with? Any of these sound familiar to you? Sometimes creating meaningful tactile graphics can be really difficult. Sometimes just creating tactile graphics at all is difficult, but especially meaningful, usable ones. Labeling graphics with contracted and uncontracted braille due to space issues, due to just having the ability to do it. That's definitely a challenge for a lot of people. Producing graphics in a timely manner definitely can be difficult. You need to get those things out quickly. Sometimes that's hard to do. Having access to an embosser to create a graphic, again, can be a challenge. So there's many things, and we hope today to talk about some ways that ViewPlus is helping with these things. And so to do that, we're going to turn it over to Dan from ViewPlus. Dan?
Hey, thanks, Paul. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I mean, these challenges, especially, I guess, going forward today, if you have questions or I'm moving too fast or glossing over something that you really are interested in, please, use the chat, and then we'll also leave time at the end for questions. But we have some things built into this presentation to give you time to answer a lot of questions. So as much, if I'm not covering what you want, then please let me know. And I was really excited to hear that the students are getting access in a large percentage of places to to the embosser. So, and then helping me today is William Freeman from APH. So we've done the technical things together. So now this is the more higher level overview, but William's going to help out too. So if there's any braille or techie questions that I can't answer, he's here also as the PixBlaster expert.
Thanks.
So yeah, because for me, I still see a lot of people when they're working on tactile graphics in this challenges phase of just how to actually simplify the technical content, or dealing with the fact that braille isn't scalable. Presents a special challenge with some apps where you don't, the print, you're trying to get it to work layout, you have to know the page layout, and a lot of web apps, you don't get that. It's just all relative, and so braille can't be relative. It's got to be the right same size every time. So, and then still seeing a lot of people that are dealing with, what I call craft projects, tactile graphics with different fabrics or glitter or yarn things on there that are not really reproducible or editable, or like things like swell paper, the microcapsule paper, or PF, depending on what those, and those are all also have some limitations on including the tactile graphics and good quality braille on there. Versus true just electronic print content. So we're seeing more and more available content that's print ready if you have access to the right kind of printer. So we'll go into that.
Yeah. Would you want to talk a bit about the partnership between ViewPlus and APH?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I've been coming to the annual meeting for probably about 6 years since I took over ViewPlus for my dad. So, and he's been coming before that. So, we've had a long partnership with APH, but this PixBlaster one really stepped it up to the next level for us. As we're very interested in supporting teachers and parents as they're exploring the opportunities with blind kids to learn in STEM subjects and find careers there. So, I mean, with our vision of just bringing accessible information to your fingertips, that tied in perfectly to what APH was wanting to do with the blaster projects, the Braille blaster projects. So this is based on our Columbia 2 technology, which included the PowerDot, as well as the Tiger Plus graphics. And so it does great quality, braille, literary quality braille, as well as high quality tactile graphics. And we worked together just finding this thing and then releasing it last summer, and thanks to a lot of you getting them, it's I think it's been a bright mark in the industry for how these things can work well and get people access to the products that they need. So, and about ViewPlus, really, I mean, if for those of you that don't know us, I mean, you've probably heard of Tiger Printers. I mean, that ViewPlus is the manufacturer. It was founded 25 years ago by my parents here in Corvallis, Oregon. And we've really, my dad was a physics professor who had gone blind at Oregon State University and wanted to keep doing physics and couldn't figure out how to access the data that he needed. And that was the the starting point for ViewPlus. So really, we are a bunch of hardware and software engineers focused solely on blind access to information. So we may get distracted from time to time on some other pieces, but I mean, for the most part, this is what we are doing every day, all day, is thinking about how we could still do this kind of stuff. And that was from the very beginning. So 25 years later, we are still the only high resolution multi-dot height tactographic solution. And then you add in Braille options and all the ink options. We are, you know, that's why we are all over the world, because we are very unique.
So here's a silly question. Why are tactile graphics important?
Well, funny you should ask. Well, it's amazing though. I mean, it's important, but yet it seems like it's everyone acknowledges that it's important, but yet a lot of, you know, I go into a meeting with a bunch of, say, blind high school or early college blind students, and they're all interested in tactographics, but most of them have never really had much access to them. So, you know, in STEM, many topics are best explained with a diagram. So in order to examine data and see the trends, you know, using tactographics makes it possible, you know, to see what the rest of us do, air quotes. You know, but of course, like Braille, it's a learned skill. And rather than waiting until crisis mode in high school, we're hoping that this you know, PixBlaster project will help make it so that there are these printers available early in the elementary school, you know, for doing tactile coloring books or labeling things around the classroom, or, you know, getting those skills of tactographics learned, so that by the time things get complicated and math goes beyond what you can do by memory, that you'll be able to understand tactographics. So for us early on, well, me as a parent, I can only imagine what it'd be like having a precocious 5-year-old going, why? And then keeping curiosity alive when they're young and they want to know all about space and fire engines and dinosaurs and, you know, things like that all over the place. How could you keep a blind kid engaged?
Yeah, those are good points. Would you want to talk a bit more about kind of the innovation that ViewPlus brings to the industry?
Yeah, I kind of touched on it, I guess. Like, it's, if you haven't heard of Tiger graphics or Tiger embossers, we have no printer that's called that. I think there was a Tiger Advantage and a Tiger Pro, but Tiger has always been tactile image graphing printer. is what Tiger stood for. My dad made it up on a napkin when they were first founding ViewPlus as a way to explain what it is that we were doing, and that one stuck. ViewPlus, I think they think of we get calls for window treatments, other kind of blinds, things like that. So ViewSonic monitors. I don't know. There's all sorts of different things, but no, we are the Tiger graphics people, and that's been since our inception. Our focus solely on, you know, providing tactographics for scientific exploration of data. You know, having ink was also an early innovation because, again, most scientists don't work in a vacuum. You need to collaborate, and there's likely to be some sighted people that you're going to want to collaborate with. So, you know, providing not for, say, like, I mean, there's all this stuff about inclusion, but for us, it was about scientific collaboration or partnering with peers, making it so that people can share the same documents. So, and then really, as we see phones and tablets becoming common, having a solution for mobile printing where you can take the text from your phone, send it right through the Tiger box, or in the PIXie in the case of the PixBlaster. Send it right through a device to convert that text into Braille on the fly, or be able to take images right from your phone and print them on your printer. Or I think even the innovation that was driven by APH was being able to take one of the I think they're the Daisy books or something, or the full books that are available, and be able to just upload that to the printer and have it just print out an entire book. So more and more, how to produce electronic things on demand if you have access to the printer at home.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, and it doesn't matter, again, we're talking about this is support across whether you're on a Mac, whether you're on a Windows PC, whether you're on an Android tablet or phone, an Apple phone, essentially a lot of things that are maybe just, as long as you have a web browser and a network, you can figure out how to get text and Braille out.
Yeah, no, that's really great stuff. I mean, I think one of the best things that on the PixBlaster is the multi-height tactile graphics, because texture is such an important part of even the simplest tactile graphic benefits from having texture. And it's much easier to make texture when you have the multi-height option, as opposed to just a single height, where you have to rely on patterns and things like that to try to simulate texture.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for bringing that up, because it is. I tend to gloss over that because it's something we've always had, but I put it early on. We're still the only ones that have anything like that, and so I take it for granted because that's what I do every day. But I mean, with texture fills, we're doing some more experimentation with that. But you have to figure out what patterns are differentiable from each other. There's all these questions about patterns, and I guess it's commonplace in more with the swell paper type things to use the patterns because you don't have multi-dot heights, so they're kind of come up with that. But yeah, it's also nice to have ways to draw things attention without them being distracting. So for example, I use the multi-dot height when I do tables, because I can make a lighter colored outline for the table, so you can find the rows and columns, but then it's a lot easier to tell the data is a cell. I mean, I know there's the Braille way of doing tables, right? But there's also, if you're just quickly doing an Excel spreadsheet and you want to print it out, you can have the columns. It doesn't take any fancy formatting. It just, Excel does it for you with the Tiger software suite. And I just changed the line color of the cells from black to a middle gray, and get a nice reminder as to where I am on the table itself. So and I guess in Word too, but
yeah, that's a good use case. I hadn't thought of doing that, because the Braille way of making tables is just a stand-in. It's not necessarily the best way to do it. So being able to make a tactile table, that would be a handy thing to be able to do.
Yeah, I say, and I don't have a Braille certification, so I don't know how often I'm breaking all the rules, but sometimes, with Braille, it doesn't fit in one cell. And I mean, it doesn't fit in one line. And so then it wraps around, and then you get lost as to which one you're in, or the correlation between the rows and the columns. And so to me, having just even a little bit of a guide in there to know, am I still in the same cell, or did I go to the next one, something like that. So
should we turn it over to Paul for a poll question?
I believe we are ready for the next poll.
All right. Now, we covered this a little bit, but I don't know if we've covered the exact specific answer to this question. So if not, just give your best guess. ViewPlus,
I briefly mentioned it.
Yeah, if they know, if they watched the NCAA tournament this year, they know the answer to this question. So ViewPlus is tied to what university in the Pacific Northwest? Is it the University of Oregon? Is it Oregon State University, University of Washington, or Washington State University? If you know your Oregon cities, or if you watched the NCAA tournament, like I said, and saw which school did of the best of the four of those did the best, you can figure out the answer to this question.
Well, surprising everybody, right? They were picked to be last in the Pac-12.
Yeah.
And then they made it.
And if you all have any questions, I'm monitoring the chat, so I'll be able to ask your questions if folks want to put them in the chat.
Oh, people don't know the difference between the ducks and the beavers.
All right. No questions so far that have been shared in the chat. Just want to make sure that you guys know that we're going to be dropping some links and resources in the chat during this presentation. I've dropped the link into ViewPlus, also for the handout that can be found at our APH Partner Showcase webpage. And a reminder that, as always, these webinars are recorded and we post them to our YouTube page at a later date. Give us at least 2 weeks to get those up and running. And we've had about 44% vote in this poll. So let's go ahead and reveal the results so far. So ViewPlus is tied to what university in the Pacific Northwest? 54% say Oregon State University, 31% say University of Oregon, and 15% say University of Washington. No one guessed Washington State University. So Dan, what was the correct response to this poll?
Oregon State, fighting beavers.
All right. Well, I'm ending the poll and I hand it back to you, Dan, to continue with the webinar.
So yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, so for those of you not familiar with the PixBlaster, you know, it's everything you need comes in one box. This is what was great working with APH, was they know the audience, which is, you know, from the original poll, is a lot of teachers for the visually impaired. So bringing everything in one place that you're going to need. So the PixBlaster with the PIXie, for, you know, if you need the Wi-Fi network, the speaker for the voice menus is all included, versus we leave a lot of that stuff as optional with the Columbia and the Delta. It does, you know, we've already talked about the high quality tactographics, the power dot braille. You know, the key thing here is that this is not specific. This is the software that it works with. It comes with the Tiger software suite from ViewPlus, so you can use our Braille translator built into Word and Excel, and our graphics editor, the Tiger Designer, as well as PixBlaster. You know, since PixBlaster, you know, is a brand new, well, I guess brand new compared to the other Braille translation tools out there, and so from that is redesigned from the ground up with some really cool stuff for supporting math that we talked about in our technical webinar. And then the other key part was this is unique with all the training and videos that are available to APH, and so it is available through the federal quota system.
Yeah, you talked about the PIXie a bit. Would you want to talk about the PIXie a little bit more and what exactly it does and what it brings to the?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, without the PIXie, it has a USB port, so you can, and a network port, so you can plug it into a network, and you know, so it's, but the PIXie, oops, what screen am I on? With the addition of the PIXie there, so it's an optional piece, but if you add it, it adds wireless capabilities. So then whether if you're at home and don't even have a network at all, if you don't have Wi-Fi at all, it can be essentially become like a Wi-Fi access point. So you could still use your phone or tablet to run it. So we've done additional pieces. So with that piece, if you are at the school or home or office with a Wi-Fi network, this will then set up on your network, and then it acts like a air printer device, right? So if you pull up your Android or iPhone, right, and you go to share print or wherever they hide it, they keep moving it around. But if you find the print function in any of your apps and you have air printers on your network, they show up on your phone. And so you'll see actually two different PixBlasters show up through the PIXie. One that's a Braille one and one that says Tiger one. So the Braille one, any text you send will get converted to Braille, and on the Tiger one, any graphics, any pictures that you send will get rendered as a graphic and printed on the printer. So again, no computer required at all.
When you're using that automatic translation, what Braille codes? This question came from the chat. What Braille codes does that support?
Everything inside of the PIXie is, you can access all the options through a web interface. So yeah, you would pick whether you want UEB, whether you want English, whether you want Spanish. It has all of the LibLouis languages that are available are built into the PIXie interface. So you can translate any language on it. So it has even more than we have inside of a Tiger software suite, because we don't even do fonts for some of the more obscure languages. So you can't do it. And ViewPlus, I think, only has US based languages. Last I looked anyway, it had, UEB had Cherokee and Spanish Bana or something. So yeah, you with that one, the on the fly, you get the widest range of Braille languages available. And yeah, I glossed over this. The PIXie interface, if you pull that up on there, I think I actually have one. If I go to so everything that you have on there is available. You're seeing my screen, right? So yeah, so you can go to the formatter settings, and default I have is English Unified, and then grade 1, grade 2. But you can pick from any of these languages that you want.
Do you have Portuguese? The question came through the chat.
Yeah, Portuguese definitely, because we have we use a lot of Portuguese because we have in Brazil. We do a lot of work in Brazil, so we have worked with our dealer very closely there to make sure that Portuguese is well supported.
Great. Do you want to talk about some common STEM requests and requirements?
Yeah, I mean, this came out of, I think, the first time I really, I've always been trying to see how can I help more, what can I do more, and I was invited to go speak at the Midwestern Braille Conference in Minneapolis, and that was like 4 years ago now, or 3 years ago. And I said, well, what are the most common requests you get? And actually going through like the BANA tactile graphics guidelines, I could also see these after I kind of knew where to look, right? So showing some examples of what I could do. And these were all things that took me, once I realized what I kind of figured out a process for this, most of these things, even if I did them wrong, like the clock, I'm showing my naivety, I'm just not fixing it. I guess on BANA guidelines, I'm supposed to put the numbers on the outside versus the inside, but I did most of these in like less than 90 seconds was my goal. So I would say the first time, or when I try to remember how I did it, it maybe takes me a few minutes, but these were all kind of things that you could do very, very quickly, between just going into Word, finding an online image through Word, what used to be called clip art, dropping them in, overlaying Braille over the top of it to cover up the word, the ink, or the normal letters. Or on the clock, I could actually print that, and it would draw those numbers, but then have the Braille in there as well. So either replacing them or eating them in there. And then the bottom right is showing. So I mean, I'm showing a thermometer with both Celsius and Fahrenheit, a ruler, a clock, and then a plot of I do a training class on linear equations, and this was just printed directly from Excel. So with Excel, we have the translator built in, so it will then create a plot or any of the XY graphs, or any of the graphs or pie charts. It'll translate the text to Braille.
Yeah, and on that clock, we actually hear this when we work with students sometimes, about how they think it's cool to see the print characters. You obviously don't want to rely on print and use print to convey information, but a lot of times our kids that are blind are not encountering print characters, and it can be useful to see them and feel them and know what you're dealing with, like what a 1 or a 2 or a 3 physically looks like. Could be of benefit, and it's something neat that they don't encounter all the time.
Yeah, and again, those are things that are really easy within the if you have just, even in Word, you want to just have big text and have it actually, you just tell, by default, we'll ignore text and won't tactile it. But if you tell the printer driver, there's an option just to emboss standard text, it will
Mhm.
actually do that. So in a lot
Oh,
of cases,
cool.
especially early childhood education, they'll emboss the big A and the lower A and things like that, so the kids can kind of feel what it feels like, and then also have the other A's. Just again, I mean, it depends on whether they're kind of, I guess, in the mainstream classroom or in special class or whatever. But again, to me, it's, I don't know whether you call it inclusion or just the curiosity thing again,
Right.
right? It's just being able to do some things that it takes 2 seconds to do something like that in Word and print it out.
Hmm.
And that'll completely work. Again, I use printer with ours because that's all you're doing. You don't need any. For an embosser requires an emboss button, which only comes in special software. everybody else that has something, they have to have the emboss button, otherwise it won't work. For all of our things, they're printers. If you have a print function, you can use that software. That's the big difference. So using Illustrator, using Word, using PowerPoint, using whatever you use and know how to use, and Braille is just a font. So that is the, I guess, the difference and the ease of use that may be confusing to people, because it's more than just learning Duxbury or learning Tactile View or learning Braille Blaster, right? But the whole thing is, hopefully you already know how to use something on your phone, something on your computer, on whatever computer it is. And if you can print something on a standard ink printer, you can use the
Yeah.
PixBlaster.
I mean, I think it's really cool that you can just take a JPEG, open it in the Photos app that you have on Windows, and just go File, Print, pick your PixBlaster, and then it will create a tactile, as of that image. And not every image makes a good tactile, but it's still a good, cool, quick way to get some type of tactile feedback to the student. And some things, simple images like I always use the example of the APH logo. That embosses really well because it's just a simple logo, and it's easy to feel even though it is just letters. So
Well, and those are some of the amazing ones. Yeah, it's like you think about all those, but logos, especially school logos and flags, in a lot of the world, the clubs have their own flags, their coat of arms things. I get the 7 to 10-year-old crowd gets that when they bring them in on Saturday or whatever to these international shows, or even the ones here in the U.S. as well, like the Lego robotics team. They didn't even know what the logos were for first Legos. I was a Lego coach too. So, I just would bring them over. I've never seen people get any more excited than we print out their school flag or their coat of arms for their school or the club logo that they have never seen. So yeah, I agree. I mean, it's cool. And if you wanted to add things to it, right, it's like you can print it in the photo app or from your phone, but you can also just drag it over into Word. If you want to add Braille into it, then you just pop up a text box and drop Braille in there. If you type it in as ASCII Braille, or you want to translate it and paste it in as Braille, or you want to use 6-key entry. I mean, we have way more than enough rope to help you do whatever you want.
yeah, one of the questions in the chat is, how do we modify or clean up a picture?
Yeah, and that's well, I'll cover some of it coming up, because the general ways is, yeah, you drop it into Word or into Tiger Designer, and you can kind of remove pieces that are confusing, play with contrast and brightness to kind of make some things go away. I mean, usually the thing I'd say the best way to do it is pick something from the start, like cartoon stuff, right? That have flat colors, don't have millions of colors. When a photograph is going to render as a blob most of the time, you have to kind of just play with it. Just think of grayscale type things. It's hard to tell. You're not going to, the different dot heights are going to be by the intensity of the color. So a dark blue and a dark green are going to look exactly the same. So there's no differentiation. So black is all the way, the yellows, white is nothing. And so just kind of think of, the simpler the color thing, or the more, I guess, like low vision, the more contrast there is in the colors. Those kind of color palettes, those kind of cartoon things print really well. Full color images usually need to go through some kind of a filter, which is, again, you can do that in Word, you can do that inside of Tiger Designer, you can do that inside of Illustrator. it just, whatever you're most comfortable with. For me, I'm not a graphic designer, so I tend to use Word for most of it, just because there's a lot of tools that just built into Word, and you can Google how to do things and find answers because everyone else is doing the same thing. So you're not having to use some specialty software that nobody uses.
Right. Well, let's turn it over to Paul for our next poll question.
All right. And this one should be pretty easy. This is just a true false question. So the question is, PixBlaster is available through federal quota funds. True or false? PixBlaster is available through federal quota funds.
That one was too easy, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are on to us. All right. And Jeff shared in the chat, just wanted to share this out loud, that many young and emerging Braille readers are curious about print. So having the flexibility of creating tactile representations of print or Braille characters is terrific.
Well, I get some back, and back for the poll for the, if it is false for you, it may be false for you in your state, that you have federal quota in every state and every territory, but you may not be permitted to buy certain products by the state rules, as I'm finding. We've been talking to the EOTs, who are the trustees in each state, and some make rules about what kind of technology products versus other things you can do. So again, you're the one false, you actually may be correct in your state, or maybe you're not, or maybe you're not in the US or one of the US territories. But Congress, the US Congress, every year I'm learning more and more about it as I study it. So it's a really cool program. And like I said, and in certain states, we're working to try to figure out where those embossers are going, because there's a lot of people, like I was talking to a lady, well, it was the NFB of Pennsylvania. We were talking to mostly high school and college age kids about where their struggles were with STEM and what we could do to help. But she had seen the announcement on NFB and come in, and she was many years ago, she had a master's in aeronautics. As a blind person, but she wasn't in the field, but she was really interested in how to access this new technology, and was wondering, was it available? Could she go to a school or a library and use one of these? And I said, that's a good question. Why don't you ask? I'm in North Texas. I'm like, I have no idea what they have available in North Texas. Yeah, so I will talk a little bit later about some of the stuff that's going on with the lighthouse in San Francisco.
Cool.
Great. So let's go ahead. We'll end polling and share that, yes, the 94% of you who said true, you are correct. PixBlaster is available through federal quota funds, and hopefully it will be available in your state as well. All right.
Well, we're seeing a pretty good spread of a lot of states are getting it, So, and this is what I was alluding to, was that I was shocked. This has been out since April. I just started hearing about it a couple weeks ago, and then I've been talking about it on my various webinars. But so San Francisco Lighthouse launched this program called Touching the News. So topical tactile graphics. So getting your hands on pictures making the news. So you can go to the lighthouse-sf.org/TTN. I guess we can put that in the chat too. But yeah, so they have a free subscription that will then send you a thing, an email saying that, yeah, a new picture is this, or vote on what picture you want to see this week. So I haven't updated it since yesterday, so I don't know if I voted on one. I think there was a space station one I really wanted to do, but they had a couple other ones. But so far they have what does the NASA Mars Ingenuity helicopter look like? This is what the lady in Texas wanted to get access to, was this printout. And or what's a graph of the COVID-19 cases? This is now getting a little dated. What percentage of the population on COVID-19, and then some other vaccine, so just data on COVID-19. So data plots. What do emojis look like? So this one shows the rolling on the floor one, but they actually have 4 different ones, because I printed them out here. I did it on our ink printer so you could kind of see it, but Oh man, it doesn't work with the background, huh? Anyway, so the Mars Ingenuity helicopter, the rolling on the floor emoji, and then the other one, the Antarctica iceberg and Antarctica map, the big iceberg that broke off in Antarctica chunk. There's a 2-pager on that one. So I have, you can download you can get on the subscription list for free at the web address. And then the cool thing, right, is they are designed to be printed on a ViewPlus Columbia or Delta, an APH PixBlaster, or the Irie Braille track. So these are all the Columbia or Delta, the tractor feed or the cut sheet printer that we sell, and then work with APH and Irie to get these out to different groups of people, as well as it'll work with the microcapsule paper, so Swell, PF, or Zychem. And so yeah, they're all laid out in letter size paper, so 8.5 by 11 paper, and so I mean that is phenomenal. I mean, in terms, and they're starting to question, there's, as people are hearing about it, they're getting people to subscribe, but they're also hearing from a lot of people that they don't have access to a printer. So I'm asking, like, do you know if people in the community have access locally to a printer at the school, at the public library, at a community college, university, or other state agencies? And if you do, there's people looking for you in your community, because like I said, there's this cool content that's now available that even if they're not using it in their everyday job, they would still like to see these things, and they're not available any other way. This will only work on either a Swell paper machine or a printer from ViewPlus. So we're also, as part of this webinar, I have all the printers set up here, so you can go and request the samples from viewplus.com/news-samples. Again, I can put that in the chat as well. But let's see if it'll come up here.
See, one of the things, like, I love that emoji graphic, just because when you have access to tactile graphics don't have to be a big deal. Like when you're having to order tactile graphics from a printing house or something like that, you're having to pay for them, and then it becomes a big deal. So you go for the big deal tactile graphics, like the Mars rover or the COVID-19 data. But when you have a printer in your home or your school that can make tactile graphics, you can have those fun, interesting tactile graphics like the emoji, and like, things that are neat and feed that curiosity, like you talked about earlier.
Yeah, well, and it's also great that it's just, I mean, they're good. I mean, Lighthouse is great, right? They contract out and do high quality professional work. These are going to be, probably certified Braillists doing
Right.
it, right? And they're combining tractographics and Braille, versus I'll sometimes just do the tractographic because it's just quicker than trying to get the Braille to fit on there. But they've done the layout, they've done it, everything, and they're very professional. And so it's exactly what you kind of say is like, why, just, and with text descriptions as well, right? So you see the part of the online part is the website is well and hopefully is accessible. And again, if it isn't, they are definitely open to
I'm
feedback.
sure it's accessible.
Exactly. I mean, right? It's like the whole thing is made to be completely accessible and made people to be self-sufficient. You don't need a seeing eye human to use this. So and that's kind of it. But then the question was, well, yeah, how do I get access to one of these printers? And it's like, well, COVID funds, relief funds are available at most states. They could go and get one with their quota relief funds, or get them through the this quota system and have them there. And a lot of them are sitting in lending libraries in states. Mm-hmm. And again, I don't know who gets access to them, and it's a state by state thing. So the power to the people is go ask. So yeah, and that's what I said, there's more and more of this stuff, and we're working, the Lighthouse in San Francisco is incredible, and they also have this other T-Maps project, which is tactile maps, so walking maps, and the same problem. How do you get an on-demand tactile reading map, walking map, where could you walk into? Is there one at Starbucks, or is there one at the library, or one at the BART station? You know, how would you get them? And it actually works globally, but that's another thing we're working with them. And then also, you know, making it portable across. So we're working with them to embed our software development kit so they can, again, create a fully laid out one for each one of our printers. So right now they're only doing them for the Columbia, the Columbia Delta PixBlaster one, because those were that's mostly what they've been using recently, and that's what that we think most people have access to more commonly than some of our other more expensive printers. But we also have our little Braille Braille. So we have a printer for, well, Irie sells a version for $1,500 in the United States. It's $2,000 internationally, but so you can get a personal printer that will also print stuff like Touching the News. And so, yeah, that's still expensive, but it's a lot less than $4,000 or $5,000 or $7,000 or $10,000 what people sometimes spend on printers. So.
Well, actually, that leads into our next poll question, which is also about cost. If you want to go to that.
All right, Betsy Ann, you can put that up whenever you're ready. We'll be talking about Touching the News. So how much is a subscription to the Touching the News service? Is it $10 per month, $20 per month, $30 per month, or is it free? How much is a subscription to Touching the News service?
All right. Well, we way underestimated the crowd here. They're on top of it. Well, I said, and if you want to order some samples of this, we will. And you don't have access to the printer, although it sounds like a lot of you did have access to it. They gave me the Illustrator versions of these, so like I said, I've converted them to create print versions that are available. That work with our other printers as well. And so, you know, I at least have 4 of the examples, 4 pages, the Mars one, the emoji one, and the Antarctica map and iceberg 2-pager. So I have those 3 that I have converted to work. So, and I can send those out free matter if anybody wants to have the example from all of our different printers, including the ones that include ink on them as well. So.
Excellent. Well, let's review what's come in so far on the polls. 53% have voted. How much is the cost of a subscription to Touching the News? 69% say free, 25% say $20 per month, and only one person said $10 per month. Nobody guessed 30 per month. So what's the correct response?
It's free, but it looks like we could charge 20. No.
Yeah,
I know. I mean, like,
I'll sign you up. Send me $20.
There's an audience for this. All right, gotta go ahead and end that poll.
So yeah, I think that then transitions us in. I mean, we're getting close. So if you have any questions, now is a good time, because this is sort of the marketing things. If you're not familiar with ViewPlus, all of this stuff is on our website, but you know, we have a wide range from both the personal embosser of the Embrail up to the big work 24/7 with the Premier and the Elite. We do have ink options. The Spot Dot is a color ink printer. The Premier and Elite with the Ink Connect black ink option have ink. With the Delta, you get this basically the same printer as the PixBlaster and the Columbia, but it takes a stack feeder print of both up to 12 inches wide. So the standard 11.5 by 11 Braille paper, or letter size paper, or whatever card stock you can buy at Office Depot, label stock that you get from like American Thermoform. I have them pointing over here. I have a Delta in my office because it's just so flexible. If I'm printing big giant things like maps for shows, then I'll tend to use the Elite with the Ink Connect, or my Columbia 2 or PixBlaster because of the tractor feed, because I can print, you know, a 1,000-page box. But you know, I have the luxury of having access to all of them, but I'd say the Columbia 2 or PixBlaster is probably the most common one that's out there. I always like having at least 1 or 2 Deltas for those fun things, like doing greeting cards, things like that, doing labels. it's nice to have a wider breadth than just tractor feed paper or only Braille specialty paper, but to be able to use anything that's maybe a little thicker than copy paper. And then a lot of you probably have heard of or seen at the shows, the Spot Dot always gets tons of attention. That's definitely our most unique printer with the all-in-one color ink, tactile, and Braille options. And if you're Smarter Balance State, you probably have a lot of the Maxes laying around as well, since that was the one that was tagged as the unit for supported by the Smarter Balanced testing for the blind students. So the secret to our success, right? This is what's under the hood of why it's so, quote, easy. And if you don't believe me that it's easy, you can simulate this. You can download the printer driver, even for the PixBlaster. Any of our printers, you can download the printer driver for free, install the printer driver, and you just set it up. If you don't have the printer, you just set up to print to file. We have a YouTube video for how to do that. And it takes about 5 minutes. Install the driver, set it up to print to file, go into an app or to the photo thing, hit print, choose the file name. It'll generate a print file. You can open it up then in the Tiger Viewer or Tiger Designer, and you can see it. With Tiger Viewer, you can see it. That's also free. If you do a 30-day free trial or you already have our Tiger software suite, you can bring it in. You can open it up in Tiger Designer and then edit it from there or make some changes. But then you'll get to see, yeah, that that my text is getting chopped off. Let's see. Oops. Reformatting for the different templates here. Let's move. There we go. Nothing like on the fly editing. Okay. So yeah, so what you're seeing is what you're going to get, on a Windows program. This also, like I said, this will work from your phone. And we have now actually built into the Tiger box or the PIXie that if you don't have a printer, it'll also generate the print files. So it's just that, so you don't even have to have a Windows PC anymore. I haven't updated the slide, I guess. But any screen color gets converted to a grayscale with 7 different shades based on the intensity of the colors. And those are your different dot heights. That's where they come from. With the Braille dot height being special, it's 1 click higher than black. So then Braille stands out above all else. And again, we provide the Braille screen fonts, both ASCII and dot versions with the printer driver. So when you install it, you will get that. And again, so this is where this PRN file is what it generates. And that's this print ready, print to file option that is now available to download on Touching the News. Yeah.
Would you want to tell us about some of the cool stuff that ViewPlus is working on now?
It's funny you should ask. Really the big thing that we're working on is in the middle is this idea of texture fills. It's been something that's been on my mind for a long time, but thanks to no traveling during COVID, we had the whole team just focused on what more we could do, asking out questions during our webinars. We've been doing a lot more of virtual stuff and asking what more we could do. And so one of the things that came up was just a better way to do texture fill libraries and mapping them to represent colors. And so that really, we tried to think about doing all this one brand new tool for doing this, and it turned out to be 2 different audiences, right? Was what we're looking at is we have an audience of, we really want the blind user to be self-sufficient, and especially we heard about elementary school kids that just were not getting access to tactographics early. So building a drawing tool that's accessible to blind users on a touchscreen device, that was our #1 piece. That's getting really close to being ready for some testers to start using it. So right now it's been developed by my dad for blind people. So it's not a pretty tool to look at, but to be able to draw shapes by description, by having a touchscreen device, by being able to print them out and lay them down on a touchscreen device, right? This is something that we really expect. I don't know if there's anything else like this.
What operating system is that on?
Said it won't matter. It's going to be running on a browser type interface. It's on Chromium, so it'll run on anything. The accessibility depends, right? I mean, you have a lot less control with iOS than you would with, say, Android or Windows PC. So, but it really should work with, you know, we're going to make sure it definitely works with like Chromebook, something low cost, that is easy to get, easy to get to. So even if we have to send a unit with somebody, it'll also work on our Aveo touchpad that we have, our audio tactile system. But those ones are so big and fragile, you don't want to be shipping them around. So yeah, that was the idea. It's portable. And then so same thing with the another tool that we're trying to merge them into one, but it just didn't make sense. We want a really simplified tool for teachers and parents to be able to, like I said, clean up graphics, like the question earlier, to create a meaningful tactile graphic, to take something down, get rid of pieces, adjust the contrast, adjust the number of colors in there. So like I say, cartoonize a picture to make it representative, and decide how you want colors to be mapped, and to automatically, if you want, map patterns to those colors to give more differentiation than just the dot heights, as well as so automatically adding pattern fills, and also being able to, and actually both tools will use that part, and then be able to quickly add Braille labels as well. So this was a 3-step tool, right? I mean, it was trying to keep it as simple as possible. And again, it will also, right now it's running on Windows, but the idea being it's built on a web-based web app type thing. So it could be something that could run on anything.
Nice.
But they're both early. I mean, that was the goal, is to make them run on anything. I mean, we've just gone through a bunch of stuff with Duxbury to make sure everything's really nailed down to work perfectly with Mac. So we've refreshed our Mac drivers, and worked with there. We used it on the PIXie is running on a Raspberry Pi, so that's Linux. So
Well, this is,
I better stop talking, because I know we got to wrap up.
absolutely. So let's hand it over to Paul to wrap us up today.
All right. So what have we discovered today? Well, we've learned about the Touching the News service. It's a free service, gives you access to some really helpful and useful tactile graphics. The PixBlaster does come with the Tiger software suite for translating print to Braille, and the PIXie device for using it as a wireless embosser. And then we've learned that ViewPlus actually develops and manufactures a line of embossers used for tactile graphics, but also for literary Braille. So it's not just about graphics. It's about anything you want to create that is Braille, whether it's a combination, whether it's literary, whether it's graphics, all of that is included. The PixBlaster, just in case you're only slightly familiar with it, it is, as we've discussed, available on Quota for $3,995. It's available for cash sale as well. There is a 1-year warranty. It does come with the Tiger software suite, obviously, and the PIXie. All that stuff. There's no optional stuff. It's all in the box for you to get started. The videos are online, as has been talked about earlier. If you go to the page for the PixBlaster on APH, there are several videos telling you how to get up and running, which is very helpful. And if we put that last slide up, Dan, do you want to let everybody know how they get in touch with you?
Oh yeah, sorry, I was putting the link in there for the. All right, sure. Yeah, if you haven't seen it already, you have viewplus.com. Phone number, well, is on at the top right, especially for accessibility. We have an 800 number that's up there, where it's a toll-free number. And if you email me at dan.gardner@viewplus.com with any questions, comments, or anything else, I'm more than happy to discuss any of this stuff with you.